The Zephyrian War had consumed 3 galaxies for over 400 years. What began as a territorial dispute between the mighty Kelvoran Empire and the resilient Nexari coalition had evolved into the most devastating conflict the universe had ever witnessed. Entire star systems lay in ruins, their planets reduced to floating debris fields that served as grim monuments to the fallen. Captain Vex Meridian of the Kelvoran battle fleet stared at the holographic display showing the latest casualty reports. His scaled fingers traced the glowing numbers with practiced resignation. Another 1,000,000 soldiers lost in the Andorian sector, another fleet reduced to scrap metal floating in the void. The war machine demanded its tribute, and both sides paid willingly, convinced that victory lay just beyond the next engagement. On the opposite side of the battlefield, Commander Zara Quiln of the Nexari Defense Corps reviewed similar reports. Her crystalline skin flickered with the bioluminescent patterns that indicated deep exhaustion among her species. The coalition had held their ground for centuries, but at what cost? Generations had been born, lived, and died, knowing nothing. But warfare. The Kelvorans possessed superior technology and overwhelming numbers. Their plasma cannons could melt through the strongest Nexari shields, and their dreadnoughts stretched for kilometers across space. Yet the Nexari had something equally valuable, an intimate knowledge of guerrilla tactics and an unbreakable will to survive. They struck from asteroid fields and nebulae, disappearing like ghosts before the enemy could respond. Both civilizations had adapted their entire societies around perpetual conflict. Children learned military strategy before they could properly walk. Scientists devoted their lives to creating more efficient weapons of destruction. Artists created monuments to glorious battles rather than celebrating peace. War had become their culture, their identity, their reason for existing. The current engagement in the Helix Nebula represented the largest military buildup in galactic history. Over 10,000 ships from each faction faced off across a region of space that sparkled with dangerous radiation and hidden asteroids. Neither side could afford to lose this battle, yet neither possessed the decisive advantage needed for victory. As Captain Meridian prepared his crew for another grinding assault, his communications officer interrupted with an unusual report. Unknown vessels had been detected at the edge of the system. The signatures were unlike anything in their databases. They weren't Kelvoran, and they certainly weren't Nexari. Commander Quiln received the same intelligence moments later. Her tactical team scrambled to identify the newcomers, but their technology seemed primitive compared to the advanced warships locked in eternal combat. The vessels were small, roughly constructed, and appeared to be held together with what looked like welded metal plates. Both commanders made the same decision: ignore the newcomers until the real battle concluded. These primitive aliens could wait their turn to be conquered or recruited. The Zephyrian War would continue, as it always had, grinding forward with the momentum of centuries. Neither realized that everything was about to change forever. The human fleet consisted of only 12 ships, each one a testament to humanity's approach to engineering, practical, durable, and built to last. The flagship, designated Earth's Pride, carried Captain James Redfern and his crew of 300 volunteers who had traveled further from home than any human in history. Captain Redfern studied the massive battle unfolding before them through the observation deck's reinforced windows. His weathered face bore the scars of Earth's own conflicts, but nothing had prepared him for the scale of destruction he witnessed. Ships the size of cities exchanged devastating volleys, while smaller craft swarmed between them like angry insects. Lieutenant Commander Nina Vasquez approached with the latest sensor readings. Her dark eyes reflected the flashing lights of distant explosions as she handed him the datapad. The readings were staggering. The energy output from a single exchange of fire between the alien fleets exceeded Earth's total power generation for an entire year. Chief Engineer Marcus Webb joined them at the observation window, his grease-stained uniform marking him as a man who preferred working with his hands. He whistled low as another alien dreadnought exploded in a brilliant flash of light. "Captain, I've been analyzing their weapon systems. Those plasma cannons are centuries ahead of anything we've developed." The human crew watched in fascination as the battle continued. The Kelvorans advanced in perfect formation, their ships moving with mechanical precision. Each vessel maintained exact distance from its neighbors, while coordinating devastating broadsides that lit up space like artificial stars. Their strategy relied on overwhelming firepower and mathematical perfection. The Nexari response showcased a completely different philosophy. Their ships darted between asteroids and used the nebula's radiation to mask their approach. They struck with surgical precision, targeting weapon systems and engines before vanishing back into the cosmic dust. Their tactics required intuition and split-second decision-making that no computer could replicate. Dr. Patricia Newman, the expedition's xenobiologist, recorded everything with scientific fascination. She had spent years studying theoretical, alien life forms, but witnessing two advanced civilizations locked in combat provided insights beyond anything she had imagined. Both species had evolved their military capabilities to extraordinary levels, yet neither seemed capable of achieving decisive victory. Captain Redfern activated the general communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies. His message was simple and direct, translated by the ship's computer into dozens of mathematical and linguistic patterns. "This is Captain James Redfern of the human vessel Earth's Pride. We come in peace and request dialogue with the commanding officers of both fleets." The response was immediate and unanimous. Both alien fleets ceased firing and turned their attention toward the tiny human ships. Weapons that could destroy planets focused on vessels that barely qualified as military craft by galactic standards. The silence stretched across space like a held breath. Captain Meridian was the first to respond, his transmission crackling with barely contained amusement. "Unknown aliens, you have entered a restricted combat zone. Your primitive vessels are not equipped for warfare at this level. Withdraw immediately or face destruction." Commander Quillen's response followed seconds later, equally dismissive but more diplomatic. "Unidentified species. This region is under military blockade. Your technology appears insufficient for survival in this environment. We recommend immediate departure for your own safety." Captain Redfern smiled grimly as he prepared his response. Humanity had fought wars with sticks and stones, progressed to gunpowder and steel, survived nuclear weapons and global conflicts. They had learned something these advanced civilizations had apparently forgotten. Sometimes the most primitive solution was also the most effective. Captain Redfern's response surprised both alien commanders with its calm confidence. "Respected Commanders, we appreciate your concern for our safety. However, we didn't travel 43 light years to turn around at the first sign of difficulty. We're here to help end this war." The communication channels erupted with what could only be described as alien laughter. Captain Meridian's scaled features twisted in amusement as he shared the message with his bridge crew. The primitive species wanted to end a war that had consumed the galaxy's greatest military minds for 4 centuries. Commander Quillen's bioluminescent patterns flickered with what her species considered polite skepticism. Dr. Newman worked frantically to analyze the alien technology while Chief Webb studied their tactical formations. Lieutenant Commander Vasquez coordinated with the other 11 human ships, each captain reporting their observations. The human fleet might be small, but they approached the problem with systematic thoroughness that their species had perfected. over millennia of conflict. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Ensign Tommy Chen, barely 22 years old and fresh from the academy, noticed something that the experienced officers had missed. The massive alien fleets were locked in predictable patterns, their movements constrained by their own technological superiority. "Captain," Chen reported nervously, "I've been tracking their battle formations for the past 6 hours. Both sides are following the same tactical doctrine they've used for centuries. They're so focused on countering each other's advanced weapons that they've forgotten about basic strategic principles." Captain Redfern studied the young officer's analysis with growing interest. The Kelvorans and Nexari had indeed fallen into a pattern of mutual adaptation. Every weapon system had been countered, every tactical innovation matched by an appropriate defense. They had achieved perfect balance, which meant perfect stalemate. Chief Webb presented his own findings with characteristic bluntness. "Sir, their weapons are impressive, but they're also incredibly complex. Each plasma cannon requires massive power generation and cooling systems. Their shields need constant recalibration to maintain effectiveness. They've built the most sophisticated war machines in galactic history, and they're too complicated to use efficiently." The human solution emerged from a combination of military history and practical engineering. While the aliens had focused on creating increasingly advanced weapons, humanity had learned to value simplicity and reliability. Human military doctrine emphasized adaptability over technological superiority. Captain Redfern called a meeting with all 12 human ship commanders via quantum communication. Captain Rodriguez of the New Horizon, Captain Patel of the Star Seeker, and the other fleet commanders gathered virtually around the holographic conference table. Each brought decades of military experience and a uniquely human perspective on warfare. The plan they developed would have been impossible for the alien civilizations to conceive. It relied on principles that their advanced societies had abandoned: deception, misdirection, and the willingness to sacrifice technological advantage for strategic surprise. The humans would use their perceived weakness as their greatest strength. Lieutenant Commander Vasquez coordinated the preparation, while Dr. Newman established communication protocols with both alien fleets. The humans would need to convince two warring civilizations to trust them long enough to implement a solution that neither side could achieve alone. The key insight came from studying human history. Earth's most successful military leaders had never been those with the best equipment, but those who could think beyond conventional tactics. From ancient battles to modern conflicts, victory had belonged to those willing to change the rules of engagement. As the human fleet moved into position, both alien commanders watched with growing curiosity. The primitive vessels were approaching the battle zone with what appeared to be suicidal confidence. Perhaps these newcomers possessed some hidden weapon system that their sensors couldn't detect. The human fleet split into 4 groups, each taking position at cardinal points around the massive battle formation. Captain Redfern's group moved toward the gravitational center of the conflict, where the largest ships from both fleets faced each other in eternal deadlock. The other human vessels scattered to seemingly random positions that made no tactical sense to either alien commander. Captain Meridian studied the human movements with professional interest. His tactical computer analyzed their formation and declared it strategically worthless. The primitive ships were too far apart to provide mutual support, too close to avoid destruction if either fleet decided to eliminate them, and positioned in areas that offered no defensive advantages. Commander Quiln reached similar conclusions through her own analysis systems. The humans appeared to be either completely ignorant of modern space warfare or operating under some incomprehensible strategic doctrine. Their small ships looked fragile compared to the armored leviathans that had fought for centuries. Captain Redfern activated his communication system and addressed both fleets simultaneously. His voice carried the calm authority of someone who had seen too many battles to be impressed by displays of technological superiority. "Commanders, I'm going to demonstrate something that your civilizations appear to have forgotten. Sometimes, the most effective weapon isn't the most advanced one. The human ships began broadcasting on multiple frequencies, not with weapons fire or tactical information, but with something far more dangerous: questions. Dr. Newman had spent hours crafting inquiries designed to make both sides think beyond their established patterns of warfare. "Captain Meridian," the transmission began, "your empire has fought this war for 400 years. What strategic objective justifies the loss of entire generations? Commander Quillen, your coalition has defended its territory successfully, but at what point does successful defense become meaningless if there's nothing left to defend?" The questions continued, each one carefully designed to highlight the fundamental illogic of perpetual warfare. The human fleet transmitted casualty statistics, resource expenditure analyses, and strategic assessments that neither side had been willing to confront. They forced both civilizations to examine their conflict from an outside perspective. Chief Webb implemented the technical aspect of the human plan. Rather than attacking the alien weapons systems, the human ships began interfering with their communication networks. Not through advanced electronic warfare, but through the simple expedient of overwhelming their channels with coordinated transmissions that made fleet coordination impossible. Lieutenant Commander Vasquez directed the next phase of the operation. The human ships released thousands of small probes, each one broadcasting false sensor readings and tactical information. The probes were incredibly primitive by galactic standards, little more than metal spheres with basic transmitters, but they created chaos in the sophisticated targeting systems that both fleets relied upon. The alien commanders found themselves in an unprecedented situation. Their advanced sensors were registering phantom targets, their communication systems were flooded with contradictory information, and their perfectly calibrated tactical formations were dissolving into confusion. The primitive human technology was proving immune to their sophisticated countermeasures. Captain Redfern watched the chaos unfold with satisfaction. The alien fleets were discovering what human military strategists had known for millennia. Complexity was a vulnerability that could be exploited by those willing to embrace simplicity. Their advanced weapons were useless if they couldn't identify legitimate targets. Ensign Chen monitored the alien fleet movements as confusion spread through their ranks. Ships that had maintained perfect formation for centuries began drifting out of position as their automated systems struggled to process contradictory information. The deadlock that had persisted for 400 years was finally breaking down. The critical moment arrived when both alien commanders realized they faced a choice: continue their futile war while the humans demonstrated its absurdity, or acknowledge that perhaps there was wisdom in the outsider's perspective. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy were being outmaneuvered by creatures who still built their ships from welded metal plates. The transformation happened gradually, then all at once. Captain Meridian was the first to break. His scaled hands trembled as he stared at reports showing his fleet's complete tactical breakdown caused by primitive human technology. 4 centuries of military tradition crumbled in the space of hours as he realized the fundamental truth the humans had revealed. His civilization had forgotten how to think. Commander Quillen experienced her revelation moments later. Her bioluminescent patterns shifted to colors that indicated profound philosophical crisis as she watched her sophisticated defense systems rendered useless by metal spheres broadcasting random noise. The Nexari had prided themselves on adaptability, yet they had been trapped in the same tactical thinking as their enemies. Captain Redfern allowed the chaos to continue for exactly 1 hour before implementing the final phase of the human plan. He broadcast a simple message to both fleets. This is what your war looks like to someone who isn't trapped inside it. Centuries of death and destruction, all to maintain a balance that benefits no one. We can end this now, or you can continue, fighting until there's nothing left worth saving. The response was immediate. Both alien commanders requested private communication channels with the human captain. The conversations that followed would reshape galactic history, not through advanced technology or overwhelming firepower, but through the simple human ability to see beyond established patterns of thought. Captain Meridian spoke first, his voice heavy with exhaustion that went beyond physical fatigue. Human Captain, what you have demonstrated today is impossible according to every military doctrine we have developed. Our weapons are superior, our technology is more advanced, yet you have rendered our entire fleet ineffective without firing a single shot. Commander Quillen's transmission carried the crystalline harmonics that indicated deep respect among her species. Captain Redfern, we have fought this war for so long that we forgot why it began. Your outsider's perspective has shown us something. We could not see ourselves. We have become prisoners of our own conflict. The negotiations that followed were unlike anything in galactic diplomatic history. Rather than complex treaties or territorial agreements, the humans proposed something radical. Both sides would withdraw to neutral zones, while human mediators helped them remember what they had originally been fighting to protect. Dr. Newman established cultural exchange programs that allowed both civilizations to rediscover their pre-war identities. Chief Webb worked with alien engineers to develop peaceful applications for their advanced technologies. Lieutenant Commander Vasquez coordinated joint missions that gave former enemies common goals to pursue. The most remarkable change came from the youngest members of both fleets. Officers like Ensign Chen worked alongside alien counterparts who had never known anything but warfare. Together, they began planning exploration missions, scientific expeditions, and cultural exchanges that would define the post-war galaxy. The Zephyrian War officially ended not with a decisive battle or negotiated surrender, but with a simple recognition that continuing the conflict served no purpose. The advanced civilizations had become so focused on fighting each other that they had forgotten how to envision peace.